While working on some previous puzzles, I had a really cool idea for a very interesting and unique shape that I've never seen before. I tightened up a 3x3 and I took it over to my bandsaw and I tilted the table to 45 degrees so that I could make a couple cuts and just see what happened. Well, that is not supposed to happen. After I made the first few cuts, I decided to tilt the table to 35 degrees and cut off a couple of the corners. After I was done with all of that, this is what the puzzle looked like, and it was kind of an interesting and weird looking shape that I'd never really seen before. So I was excited to fill all the pieces and sand everything down so that I could see what the overall puzzle was going to look like. I started by taking the puzzle over to my belt sander and I sanded all the faces down just so that it would all be level before I started filling any of the pieces. After I finished sanding all those pieces down, I took the puzzle over to my desk and I glued a couple of the pieces in place just to make sure that none of the caps on the inside of the pieces split open while I was filling anything. I don't know if I've ever shown this, but some of those caps on the inside of the pieces are very loose, and if you press too much epoxy sculpt into them, they can expand a little, and if they end up curing like that, there's really no way to fix it, so it's always helpful to glue all of the caps in place. After all the pieces were filled and cured, I took the puzzle over to my belt sander so I could sand it down to the shape that I wanted. After sanding all the faces down, you might recognize this puzzle. It's basically a hexagonal prism without any of the extensions, and I missed a couple of the edges in the initial cutting. I wasn't intending to cut the puzzle this way, I just wanted to do something unique but also symmetrical, and I guess I came out with this, which I think is pretty cool. So after I'd finished sanding everything down, it was time to disassemble the puzzle so that I could round over all of the pieces and get to stickering this puzzle up. I disassembled the puzzle and I got a nail file out to knock off all of the sharp edges on each of the pieces. After I did that, I rubbed it down on a fine sanding block and then I rubbed it down even further on some Scotch-Brite. The Scotch-Brite is really helpful in rounding over all of the pieces, and this is what a finished piece looks like next to a piece that hasn't been touched at all. So if you didn't have any reason to buy Scotch-Brite before, you do now. Trust me, it's very good. I reassembled the puzzle now that all the pieces were finished, and I was pretty happy with the overall shape that I was left with. Despite not seeing this shape anywhere before, this puzzle also presented a bit of a challenge to me, which was what kind of color scheme to sticker it up with. I figured in sticking with the theme of originality, I decided to go for a double 6-color scheme. There were 6 modified faces on the puzzle and 6 unmodified faces, so I went for a 6-color scheme that blended the two of them together so that it wasn't too crazy looking, but at the same time, crazy looking. Is that making any sense? Because it makes sense in my head. But then again, I'm the one that does this for a living, so what does that tell you? So anyways, this puzzle is a shape-shifting puzzle, and as you can see from the checkerboard pattern, which on a side note looks really cool, this puzzle shapeshifts a lot, and it's because so many different cuts have been made on so many different faces and a couple different angles too, so things get scrambled up and they look pretty crazy. As far as my overall opinion of this puzzle is concerned, I'm really happy with how it all looks, but not for the reason that you might think. Initially, I had no idea of what I was going to get, and I just went with a very simple idea, which was to make a couple cuts on a couple different angles and see where everything ended up. And that's one of the things that I love about puzzle modding. You really don't need much of an idea to get a really beautiful or interesting looking puzzle. So anyways, I hope you guys like this puzzle, and I hope you guys like this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.